This is a plugin I just created for Adobe Premiere Pro using the UXP framework. And as you can see here, it says, "Hello YouTube," and it's showing us some information about the current project. You can see that there's no active sequences found. Let's go ahead and clear that application info. That goes away, and we can repopulate it with the Populate Application Info button. By the end of the video, you'll be able to have your own plugin that looks just like this. Welcome to Programming for Adobe. My name is Tommy, and I'm here to help you guys make awesome plugins for Adobe products. Before we get into that, I need to talk about what UXP is and how it differs from the old way of doing Adobe plugins called CEP. UXP stands for Unified Extension Program. At the time of recording this video, it's not yet available in the full release of Adobe Premiere Pro. If you want to use UXP, which will be the standard going forward, you will need to have access to a version of Adobe Premiere Pro that is greater than or equal to 25.2. As of April 2025, which is when I'm recording this video, that means you're going to have to install Adobe Premiere Pro Beta from the Creative Cloud. If you want to know what version of Premiere Pro you're running, click on this icon in the top left hand and click About Premiere Pro. That's going to output the version you're running. And you're going to need at least version 25.2. If you're watching this video in April 2025, you almost certainly will have to download the beta version of Adobe Premiere Pro. You're also going to need a program called Adobe UXP Developer Tools. This is going to help us load the plugins. It's going to manage some of the plugins, and it's also going to help with debugging. This is going to be found on Adobe Creative Cloud. You should note that the first time you install and run this program, it's going to prompt you to allow installing developer plugins. Developer plugins are not signed, they're not verified. That means you have to explicitly allow your Adobe applications to use these plugins. Otherwise, they'll be rejected. Once you click OK, you're going to be greeted with this screen here. And if we take a look here, we're in the developer workspace. You can see that I already loaded in and have running the UXP Hello World plugin here. We're going to unload this, and you'll notice that that's going to remove it from the Premiere Pro Beta that I have running. You will need Premiere Pro Beta up and running to load any plugins. We're going to remove this one from now because we want to start from scratch. So assuming you don't have any plugins installed, you don't have anything working yet, you can use the Create Plugin button here to get started. It's going to prompt you to put in some information about your plugin, like the name, some versions. We'll go through all of this. So for the name, just put in whatever you want. So I'm going to do UXP YouTube Tutorial. The plugin ID you probably also want to set as well. Let's make this UXP YouTube Tutorial. I wouldn't put spaces in the plugin ID. I think it's going to cause some issues later. The plugin version, just keep that at 1.0.0 for now. And since we're doing Premiere Pro here, we're going to select Premiere Pro as the host application. Note that with UXP, you can also make plugins for, it looks like Photoshop, InDesign, and XD. But today we're focused on Premiere Pro. The host application version should be automatically populated. It should be able to detect what version of Premiere Pro you have if you have it installed. But if you don't, make sure that you set this appropriately. For Premiere Pro Beta as of April 2025, that's going to be 25.3.0. And the template, we're going to click React. React is a framework for building web applications. I'm going to explain why that matters later, but for now, just click React and that'll help you follow along. So click on React, and then now we're going to select a folder for this plugin. I have a folder in my home directory on my Mac called Adobe Premiere Pro UXP plugins, and that's where I'm putting all the plugins, and that's where I'm going to continue to put the plugins for this demo today. So select that folder, and that is going to create a folder within that folder you selected. So now what we want to do is actually open up this in a text editor. You'll notice that the plugin is now appearing in the UXP Developer Tools window, but if we go and try to load it, we're going to get an error here, plugin load failed. Let's click on the details, and we'll notice that the manifest file cannot be loaded. It does not exist. But just know that we have to go and open the plugin folder that Adobe created for us, and we're going to have to do some stuff to it to get it ready to be loaded. So now we're going to need a text editor. I personally use WebStorm. I have a software development background, and that's where I'm most comfortable. But if you're not comfortable with WebStorm, you can use VS Code. You could use Sublime Text, but I would personally recommend WebStorm. I'm going to leave a link below in the description to download it. Now we're over in WebStorm, and we can see all of the files that were created by the Adobe UXP Developer Tools. On the left-hand side of my screen, we're looking at the file browser, so I can see the full contents of this folder. The README is going to be a document populated by Adobe that's going to include information about how to build the plugin and how to do some of the other basic stuff. What we need to do now is open up a terminal. A terminal is going to allow you to type in some commands, and these commands are going to help us build the plugin. They're going to help us install dependencies that we're going to need for the plugin. Don't worry too much if you haven't used this before. You can follow along with the exact commands I'm typing in, and I'm going to try to explain as best as I can if you don't have a programming background. The first thing we're going to want to do is run npm install. By the way, you're going to need npm. To see if you have npm installed in the first place, type in npm -- version. If npm is installed, it's going to print something like this out. If npm is not installed, you'll get an error that says command not found, which will probably look like this, command not found. If that's the case, you're going to want to install npm. If you're on Mac OS, you can do that using a program called Brew. Brew is a package manager, and you can do a brew install npm. That'll go ahead and get npm installed for you. If you don't have Brew, you can definitely look this up on Google or with ChatGPT. It should not be too complicated to get installed. Once you have npm installed, now we're going to run a command called npm install. npm install. This is going to go and download all the dependencies that our code needs to run. If you don't run npm install, none of this other stuff is going to work either. While that's installing, let's take a look at the project structure. And also notice that that node modules directory just popped up. npm puts all of the dependencies that it needs into this node modules folder. Anything that was installed there is going to pop up under node modules. You probably won't need to look at this folder very much, but just know that that's what it is. Source is going to contain all of the source code for the plugin. Adobe UXP plugins are implemented in JavaScript, and you can use standard web development frameworks. But because it's running in an Adobe application and not a web browser, you also have access to the host application. That would be Premiere Pro APIs, Photoshop APIs, etc., etc. The types of files you're going to find under source are going to be JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, standard web development stuff. Now that the dependencies are installed, we can run an npm run build. npm run build is going to build the plugin and package it up. Notice that the output of npm run build is actually in this dist directory, dist standing for distribution. Anytime you run npm run build, it's going to take all the code from the source directory, it's going to link it up with the dependencies from the node modules directory, and it's going to dump everything into this dist directory. Crucially, you're going to see a file called manifest.json. Manifest is going to contain a bunch of configuration about the plugin. We're not going to go into too much detail on it right now, but just know that this is where you need to configure everything. And when you're actually loading a plugin, you are providing Adobe UXP developer tools a path to this file. If you remember here, it was actually complaining about the manifest path. Now that the manifest JSON is there and is present in this folder called dist, we can load the plugin. Now I'm going to pull over the plugin from the other window, and we can see here that we have the hello world, and it says application info at the top. But we want it to say hello YouTube. Where can we find the application info? Know that one thing you're going to want to do a lot is searching through all of your files. If you're on WebStorm, you can do this with Command-Shift-F, and you're going to type in application info. We see the text application info here, and in our source code, somewhere the string application space info has to appear because that's how it's getting populated on the screen. So I'm doing a full text search here because now we should be able to find it. And I happen to know that it's coming from this component called header.jsx. So if we want to change this, we can say, hello YouTube, we did it. We can say, hello YouTube, we did it. Now let's go and check on the plugin. Well, nothing changed. Let's think about why. Well, the plugin is loaded from the dist directory, from the distribution directory. We changed a file, we're gonna open it in the file browser here under source. The build process is what translates the files from source into distribution. Because that build process has not been run, the changes are not present in our application here in the Premiere Pro window. So what we're gonna do is rerun npm run build. And that is going to update the files in the dist directory. So now we go over and yep, same thing. We still see application info. What's going on? Well, UXP Developer Tools is responsible for loading and reloading plugins inside of Adobe Premiere Pro. They do not, by default, get updated automatically. And what this means is, after we run the build, we are going to have to click Reload here. Let's click Reload. Now we go over to the panel and we see that our changes have been made. Hello, YouTube, we did it. There is this Watch option here. Let's click Watch. And now I believe Adobe UXP Developer Tools is going to be continuously pulling the distribution directory and looking for any changes. So why don't we make a change here and say, let's add a few exclamation points. And then now we're going to rerun npm run build. And now let's see if it worked. Yes, so now we are explicitly telling Adobe UXP, you need to watch this directory. Anytime a file changes, go and reload the plugin. By the way, if you're wondering where I got these commands from, there's a very important file in the root of your project. It's called package.json. Package.json is used in web development in any JavaScript project. If you want to deep dive into package.json, you should look into web development. You should look into how NPM works. There's plenty of good videos on YouTube. But at a high level for us, this file is going to contain all of the dependencies. And if we scroll down, dependencies are listed under both dev dependencies and dependencies. Don't worry too much about the difference between these, but just know that anytime you want to import somebody else's code into your project, if you don't want to copy and paste stuff, what you would do is modify this file and run an npm install. Or you could run an npm command to install a package and modify the file for you. Then up here, we're going to notice there's a scripts part of the package.json. The scripts is very important. These are scripts that you're going to need to run throughout the lifecycle of your project. One of the ones we've already seen before is build. When we run npm run build, what's going to happen is npm is going to read through package.json. It's going to look through the scripts portion of package.json. And anything you put after run, it's going to look for a match. So because I put build here, it's going to run this sub command here. So npm run build is really going to run a sub command called webpack with these arguments. Don't worry about webpack. It's very confusing, but just know that running npm run build is how you would interact with these scripts. If I run npm run build 1, you'll notice that I get an error about script not found, and you'll notice that there is no build 1 script in the package.json. If I change the name of build to build 1, now I run npm build 1, and now it's working. That should be everything you need to know to get started making Adobe Premiere Pro UXP plugins. There's plenty of stuff I didn't cover. I didn't talk about the differences between CEP and UXP. I didn't talk about how to actually make changes to the plugin, how to make it do anything useful. I haven't yet talked about the Premiere Pro API. All of this stuff I want to make videos about in the future. Leave a comment down below if there's a specific topic around plugin development that you want me to dive deeper into. This UXP stuff is super new for Adobe Premiere Pro Beta, and I'm excited to figure it out together with you guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.